Most players have no idea what actually makes their DM's life easier versus what secretly drives them insane. And you're in luck, because I've been DMing for over 20 years. So today I'm gonna tell you 10 specific things that make DMs absolutely love their players and their games. Be careful though, because if you want to get extra gold and experience points, you need the 10 of them. So try to pay attention. Have you ever seen someone spend 5 minutes flipping through books during their combat turn? I bet you have. And I bet you could practically hear the narrative tension deflating like a punctured balloon. Nothing kills game momentum faster than a player who doesn't know how their own character works. And this isn't just about efficiency. It's about respect for everyone's limited game time. Every minute spent looking up rules is a minute not spent immersed in the story we're all there to experience together. The contrast is stark. Compare. I cast... Wait, hang on, let me find that spell. Okay, it says... Wait, what's a DC again? I cast Fireball centered 15 feet behind the ogre to catch all 3 without hitting our fighter. That's a DC 15 dexterity save for 8d6 fire damage. Half damage on success. Yeah. Here's how to master your character abilities in 3 concrete steps. Set a timer for 15 minutes before each session to review your character sheet, focusing on combat options and skill bonuses. Create physical spell cards with all relevant information. Range, components, effect, save DC, that's for spellcasters, or ability cards for martial characters. And then you run a solo practice combat once after each level up, taking yourself through 3 rounds of turns to make sure you have your options under control. Trust me, few things make a DM's heart sing like a player who knows exactly what their character can do when their moment comes. Okay, cool. Now you know what to do when the initiative tracker gets to your turn. But what about, the rest of the time? DMs love players who don't wait to be spoon-fed plot hooks. The psychological shift here is profound. When players passively wait for the DM to entertain them, the entire creative burden falls on one person. But when players actively engage with the world, the narrative becomes collaborative and infinitely more interesting. What if, instead of waiting for the DM to ask, "What do you do in town?" a player said, "While we're in town, I want to visit the local temple and ask about the strange symbol we found." This simple act of engagement transforms the experience for everyone. It actually makes our job easier when you drive the story forward. We can focus on making your ideas awesome instead of, pushing you around like reluctant tourists. This doesn't mean going completely off the rails. It means showing curiosity about the world we're creating together. So, ask questions about the environment, interact with background NPCs, pursue side elements that catch your interest. If you want to take more initiative, before each session, write down 3 specific questions your character wants answers to about the world, NPCs, or plot. At the start of each session, announce 1 clear goal your character has for that day of adventuring. And when entering new locations, immediately identify and interact with 1 environmental element that catches your eye. When a player says, "I'm interested in finding out, about the ancient ruins that we saw," they've just gifted their DM with narrative direction. And that's something we treasure. Okay, awesome. Now you know what to do during, not combat. But what if I told you there was a way to make your DM happy that didn't even require playing? According to a comprehensive study by the Idariad Institute of DMing, which is a highly scientific organization that exists entirely in my imagination, 97.3% of campaign deaths are caused by scheduling conflicts. Campaign killing issue number 1 is always scheduling. All jokes aside, scheduling frustrations kill more campaigns than any monster ever could. Picture a DM who spent 4 hours preparing an epic confrontation, only to receive a group text 30 minutes before game time. "Can't make it tonight, something came up." Yep. What if your group had a shared calendar with automatic reminders, and clear expectations about attendance. Imagine establishing protocols where cancellations require 72-hour notice, emergencies are communicated directly, and you have backup plans for when someone can't make it. Here's how to establish scheduling protocols your DM will love. Create a dedicated Discord channel or group chat solely for scheduling, separate from general game chat. Then put in place a 72-hour confirmation rule where everyone must confirm attendance 3 days before each session. And establish a clear threshold, like we play if at least 4 or 5 players can attend, and alternative activities for below threshold days. These logistical courtesies might seem trivial, but they create the stable foundation needed for deep, engaging campaigns to grow. Also, if you realize at some point that the rules you chose mean you're never playing, have that difficult conversation. Either change the rules, revise frequency expectations, or, change the lineup. This is a game. It's supposed to be fun. Trust me, it's not worth it. Alright, scheduling is working. You're playing. Great. But your DM still isn't pleased. Why? Well, it may very well be because of this. Imagine the difference between these two scenarios. In the first, the DM mentions a mysterious noble named Lord Vention, and players nod blankly. 3 sessions later, when Lord Vention returns, everyone stares in confusion. Who was that again? In the second scenario, when Lord Vention returns, a player immediately says, "That's the noble with connections to the Crimson Hand cult we met at the Governor's Ball." The 4 most beautiful words a player can say are, "I wrote that down." Taking notes signals investment, and investment creates motivation for the DM to deliver better content. It's a virtuous cycle. When players take notes, DMs can create more complex narratives with subtle clues and foreshadowing, knowing those elements won't be, lost. So here's how to do note-taking effectively. Dedicate a specific notebook or digital document exclusively for campaign notes, divided into sections for NPCs, locations, quests, and mysteries. Spend, 5 minutes after each session highlighting the 3 to 5 most important discoveries or developments, and begin each new session with a 60-second recap of key points from your notes. Your notes aren't just record keeping, they're a tangible demonstration that this shared story matters enough to document.
Also, if you want to make your DM love you before the campaign even starts, I put together a free guide called The 7 Deadly Sins of Character Creation. It's short, punchy, and honestly fixes half the problems DMs complain about before they even happen. Links in the description.
Okay, so you're taking notes now. Great. But you forgot to write something that comes before the game even begins. Think about the difference between a blank canvas and one with a few intriguing brushstrokes already applied. Which is more inspiring to work with? The same applies to character backstories. DMs secretly love when you give us narrative ammunition. What if you created a character with specific elements, like maybe a mysterious tattoo they don't remember getting, an estranged mentor who disappeared under suspicious circumstances, or a deep fear of water? These elements immediately provide narrative threads a DM can weave into the campaign. The best character backstories are open-ended questions, not complete stories. Let's compare. My parents were killed by orcs, closed, to my parents disappeared on an expedition in the frozen north, open. The first statement only leaves room for revenge. The second invites collaboration. So here's how to create effective character hooks. Include one unresolved mystery in your backstory with clear emotional significance to your character. Then create 2 specific NPC connections, one positive relationship and one complicated or negative one. And then write down 2 clear fears or vulnerabilities and 2 specific goals. And then explicitly tell your DM these are available for plot development. You provide these narrative seeds. Your DM can cultivate them into story moments that feel personally meaningful. And that's something we love. Most DMs are juggling so many elements, rules, narrative, NPCs, pacing, that they struggle to also manage interpersonal flow. So when a player steps into that gap, it transforms the experience. DMs love players who take on the invisible emotional labor of table management. Imagine a player who subtly brings quieter participants into conversations. Hey, what does your character think about this plan? Or someone who gently redirects excessive tangents. So, guys, about that mysterious door we were discussing, according to the highly reputable Journal of Tabletop Psychology, very serious publication, it is, okay? 94% of amazing game experiences feature at least one player who helps manage group dynamics. Here's how to become that valuable social facilitator. If someone hasn't spoken for 5 minutes during a planning session, directly ask for their input. Master the gentle redirect phrase. That's interesting. But before we go down that path, let's finish deciding about, current topic. After rules questions are answered, be the one to refocus with, so to continue what was happening. This isn't about doing the DM's job, okay? It's about understanding that although the DM has a particular role to play, they're also a player. So having fun at the table should be facilitated by everyone. And helping the DM out means they can focus on creating a responsive, engaging world instead of managing group dynamics. And that difference is felt by everyone at the table. Speaking of crafting a responsive world, what if your DM revealed that the kindly innkeeper who's been helping the party was actually the missing heir to the throne in disguise? Now, imagine two possible player responses. Response A, cool, do we get a reward for helping them? Response B, wait, that explains why they knew so much about court protocol and why they asked all these questions about the royal guard. Which response would make you, as a DM, more excited to create future plot twists? DMs spend countless hours crafting reveals, twists, and emotional moments, so we crave your genuine reactions. They are literally our reward system. They validate all the effort we've put into crafting those moments and motivate us to create more of them. So here's how to provide the reactions DMs live for. Vocalize at least one theory or connection after each significant revelation. Express genuine emotional responses in the moment. A surprised, "What?" an excited, "I knew it," or even a worried, "Oh no," are all valid. Of course, don't force it, but my point is, don't be shy, okay? And take 30 seconds after major revelations to briefly discuss what your character feels about the development. These reactions complete the storytelling circuit. Without them, your DM is performing into an emotional void. And if you don't feel anything, well, tell them. But hold on, there's an art to it. Imagine cooking an elaborate meal for friends, okay? Would you prefer they critique each dish loudly during dinner or share thoughtful reflections privately afterward? The method of delivery dramatically impacts how feedback is received. The way and timing of feedback can make or break a DM's confidence. What if, instead of pointing out issues during the session, you messaged your DM afterward with a thoughtful note? "I really enjoyed the political intrigue tonight. I'm curious if we might get more opportunities for stealth approaches in the future." But the NPC interactions were fantastic. Here's the formula I recommend you use for feedback your DM will appreciate. Wait at least 3 hours after the session ends before sending feedback. Then use the 2-1-2 structure. 2 specific things you enjoyed, 1 suggestion framed as a question, and 2 more positive observations. And finally, you always send feedback privately via direct message, never in group chats. When feedback feels supportive rather than critical, DMs can implement changes without the emotional burden of public criticism. And that leads to better games for everyone. Okay, so now your DM knows what you want to include in the game because they listen to your thoughtful feedback. But what if you go off rails? Contrary to what a lot of people think, most DMs don't mind when you go off script. If you do it in an interesting way. There's a massive difference between derailing with creativity versus derailing with disruption. All right, I attack the bartender. I'm bored is disruptive. Okay, so look, we discussed it, and instead of infiltrating through the sewers, we want to pose as nobles and attend the gala. Is creative engagement. What if your party was supposed to infiltrate a castle through a secret passage, but instead decided to befriend the guards and get invited to dinner with the Baron? This unexpected approach might create a far more interesting scenario than what was originally planned. Here's how to derail plans in ways your DM will secretly love. When avoiding the apparent path, immediately offer a specific, interesting alternative approach. Focus on creative solutions that engage with the world rather than avoid it. And frame your deviation as, we want to try this approach because, character motivation, rather than, we just don't want to do that. This leads us to what might be the most controversial insight I have to share about what DMs love. Sure, D&D is collaborative. Sure, the DM is not the enemy of the players. Sure, some DMs will even fudge dice, to avoid TPKs. But DMs actually love when characters occasionally fail spectacularly, and the best players embrace those failures. The most memorable moments in campaigns are rarely, flawless victories. They're the dramatic failures, the tragic decisions, and the costly sacrifices that create genuine emotional stakes. Story structure fundamentally requires setbacks and failures. Without them, victories feel hollow and narratives feel flat. The most celebrated actual play moments across, Critical Role, Dimension 20, and other shows are often spectacular failures or character deaths. So here's how to embrace failure productively. When you fail an important role, immediately ask, how does this failure change the situation? Keep a failure journal, tracking your character's 3 most significant failures and how they impacted their development. And after a major setback, take 2 minutes to publicly consider how this, changes your character's perspective. This mindset transforms disappointing dice rolls into opportunities for more compelling storytelling and ultimately a more satisfying campaign. Did you identify new approaches to try at your next session? The beauty of these insights is that even implementing, 1 or 2 can dramatically improve your game experience. We've talked about what makes DMs love their players once a campaign is running, but there's something equally important that happens before all of this, that crucial first session where everything begins. Just like players often misunderstand what DMs truly value during play, there are similar misconceptions about what makes a campaign opening truly engaging. Most groups start with the same familiar setups, but struggle to make them feel fresh and exciting. Click on this video next to discover 7 terrible ways to start a campaign, where I will show you how to transform these predictable beginnings into openings that immediately hook your players and set the stage for all these positive behaviors we've discussed today.